Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Garrett. He scores! Off the face-off! Up it's Eminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They score! They score! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from Stamford, Connecticut.
And the home of the Ice Hogs, Rockford, Illinois.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast for Friday, March 25th, 2022. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on spring crop rotation, we're not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast. I'm Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And I'm Courtney Bauman of Full Press Hockey and from Center Ice.
And we thank you for tuning in with us tonight. CC is out of pocket, unfortunately, as you probably guessed by Courtney hanging out with us. Feel free to speculate amongst yourselves where he is. I heard a rumor he was going to Boston to get his hands on some March Munch. If you're new to hearing what it's usually CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups from the past weekend for you. We both watch a lot of AHL games, and we're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to check out episode 0. It's on our podcast feed. It's on our YouTube channel. It's all the way at the bottom. It's called episode 0 because that's the order we did it in. But it's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. Let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes looking for a filed no trade clause. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey? Well, the NHL trade deadline certainly shook up the hockey world, and some AHL waves being made as well. But since the AHL trade deadline hasn't passed yet, we'll try and wait as much as we can until the dust settles to kind of weigh in and do a little bit of a dissection of that. If you're curious as to what Cece and I would do at the AHL trade deadline, head over to our last episode and check that out, because we put on our AHL GM hats and wheeled and dealed and made some waves, so to say.
You sure did. But before we jump into talking about what's coming ahead this weekend with these teams, I've got 2 things for you. First of all, Cale freaking Morris, goaltender for the Rockford Ice Hogs. Are you happy that Colin Delia is now with the Blackhawks, so Cale will be getting some more starts with us here in Rockford?
I am. He's had some rough outings this season, which is to be expected. I thought he was good last season, but also a little bit of watered down competition. But I do like Cale Morris, and I think if he gets the opportunity to get comfortable in Rockford, that he'll surprise some people. I don't ever think he'll be a star goaltender in the AHL, and probably unlikely to ever make it to the show. But I think he's capable of being a useful starting goalie in the A, and I'm excited to see him get a more concrete opportunity. But I do think he has some things to work out, and I think it's going to be best for him to work those out through gameplay. Rockford is solidly in a playoff spot, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But, I mean, they're in very good ways. Like, I don't feel like it's a fingers crossed moment. But, hey, if you want to be
the Ice Hogs, it's always a fingers crossed moment.
That's fair. But I think they should let him, not have a short leash on his starts. If he makes some mistakes, and he's going to, he's made some in the games that we've covered that he played in. But, they're not ones that are just, that's a bad goalie. They're little tweaks, making a bad read here can be fixed. Whereas, some of if you had bigger movement problems, that's a longer process. But I like it. I've been on the free Cale Morris, not quite as heavily as the free Brian Pinot movement, but still am excited to see him get time.
Yeah, I was a little bummed when we had so many goaltenders, so he was stuck with Endy this year. But of course, we got to see the debut and the blooming of Arvid Soderblom. So at least Cale doesn't have to come in and be the guy, because we have our guy, so he can just, like you said, get comfortable in the AHL with the Ice Hogs and play behind Soderblom, who's playing absolutely fantastic this year.
And also him giving him playing time, gets Soderblom some rest because he has carried quite the heavy workload this season. And because they're in a comfortable spot, they can afford to, maybe not go out and have to win every game to make the playoffs, which is nice.
Yeah. They have a 4-game win streak going right now, though, so we'll see. But since I've got you here, please give me a trade grade for Chicago, the Blackhawks, not the Wolves, sending Brandon Hagel to the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know we talked about this before when it first happened because I needed something to hold on to, but that trade did bring Taylor Radish and Boris Kashuk to Chicago. They both broke into the NHL mostly this year with the Lightning, but they were previously in Syracuse, and since I'm in the chaotic Central Division, I don't get to see much of Syracuse, and I don't know much about them, so help a girl out here, Sean. I'm still sad about this. Give me hope.
So Boris Kashuk was actually at the top spot on my ballot for best forward last season at our Calder Farmstead Award show. It ended up going to Cooper Marody, but I still had him high on my ballot, but I think by total points of ballot, CC was not as high on Kachuk as I was that year, and that's fair. But I thought Boris was really great in the AHL last year, in the kind of weird cauldron of COVID and taxi squads that we got to see. I thought he was really impressive. But in the NHL, both he and Radish have shown to be defensively responsible pieces in limited minutes. They aren't doing a ton of offense at the NHL level, but in the AHL had a lot more success generating offense. If they get a bigger opportunity with the Blackhawks, which it looks like they're going to, I think they can show a more complete game than just defensively responsible, bottom six guy who can play their minutes to a draw, which is really all Tampa asked them to do. But we'll see. I think Chicago's a better landing spot because that'll give them room to grow, whereas there was no upward mobility for them in Tampa because, well, look at that roster.
It's Tampa.
It's Tampa. They're the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions and still a big contender this year because their roster is disgusting. So the fact that they had no upward mobility really hindered them, and they were asked to do very little and play defensively responsible. I think they have a good chance of at least showing that they are capable of being, third line NHLers with some scoring upside. But I think at the very worst, you're going to get solid fourth liners, which, that's not the hope that you're looking for. But I also want to point out that Hagel got arguably a better return than Claude Giroux. Now, it's clear Giroux was heavily limiting the Flyers where they could trade him. And I think it's incredibly possible that the list of places he'd wave to go was 1, Florida, end of list. Still, though, the Hawks got an insane return for Hagel and basically had no choice here. I like Hagel's game a lot, but he's come out of basically nowhere this year to have a higher on-ice shooting percentage than John Tavares, Jack Hughes, Patrick Kane, Andrei Svechnikov, Artemi Panarin, and Jake Getzel, to name a few. Is Hagel better than them?
Yes.
No.
Yes, he is.
No, he is not. But I think it's entirely possible that this is the peak of production we're going to see from Brandon Hagel. Now, I'm not saying it's likely, but it is possible that he's never going to score, 25 goals or be on a 30-goal pace again in the NHL. And that's not necessarily a mark against him. Scoring 30 goals in the NHL consistently is very, very hard. That's why not a lot of guys do it. But the Hawks sold as high as humanly possible on him. And I understand that pain. But this is a Godfather offer. You cannot refuse this from a guy who has been a bright flash, but still not one with a track record of doing this and who is maybe outkicking his coverage in terms of the points he's produced and the goals he's scored. I am absolutely willing to take 2 conditional firsts and 2 reasonable prospects back in exchange for a guy that I like, but I'm not 100% certain that he is the next Artemi Panarin or Jake Getzel or someone of that ilk. This is like I said to you before we started recording, if someone came up to you, knocked on your door and was like, "Hi, I'd like to buy this house." And you'd be like, no, I'm not selling you my house. They're like, "Here's $5 million for this house." You'd be like, "All right, here are the keys. What do I need to sign? Can I finish packing my stuff before the end?" You'd be gone. That's a lot like what this offer was.
Can I bring Brandon Hagel back to Chicago in that deal where they buy my house?
No.
Well, no deal. No deal.
But that's the offer that they got. You're offering 2 first-round picks for that dude. There are not a lot of players in the NHL that if you put the offer of 2 first-round picks and 2 reasonably okay-ish prospects, that they're like, no, we can't have that guy. Like, that's a list of maybe 30 NHL players. I don't blame the Hawks for this at all. They got a king's ransom in return. Good for them.
All I can say is we also sent Tampa Bay 2 fourth-round picks, and just in my gut, I feel like those 4th-round picks are going to turn out better than the 2 firsts that we got from Tampa, because that seems like a Tampa Bay thing, you know?
Well, I mean, and I know it's difficult, but at some point you have to trust your team to do the right decisions. And I understand with Chicago, that is
the Chicago Blackhawks we're talking about here.
But if you're not going to at least have hope that eventually at some point they can get it right, then what are we doing here?
You know, Sean, I ask myself that every single day.
Fair. That's fair.
And also, for people who are fans of seeing their AHL players make the jump to the NHL and succeed, Taylor Radish is on the first power play unit in Chicago, and he's got 2 goals so far. So if you're a Radish fan, there you go. But I'm still mad.
That's completely fair. But it's like I think Radish has upside. I think Kachuk has offensive upside. They just didn't get to show it in Tampa, and we'll see what they can do. I think there's a chance that they become useful middle 6 players in the NHL. Not a great chance, but a chance.
Well, that's fair, I guess. But as you said, that deadline has passed. The AHL trade deadline is still ahead of us. But in the meantime, we do have playoff races to talk about here quickly. So let's dive into those. The race in the Atlantic is pretty much down to Bridgeport and Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Bridgeport is currently at 42.8%. Wilkes-Barre is at 55.2%. The Phantoms are at 17.8%, and everyone else is 91% or better. So
it looks like this thing on the side here. If you can't, if you're on the visual portion here, this is what our playoff graph looks like. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to finish.
No, you're fine. Graphs are fun. So the race is really down to 2 horses here. So, Sean, what are your thoughts on the Atlantic Division playoff race?
I surprisingly have nice things to say about Bridgeport, which is weird for me because usually I'm very down on them, and rightfully so. But they have really made a push here and has suddenly made what seemed like a week ago or 2 weeks ago to basically just be like an inevitable, these are the 5 teams, that's it. They've made this into a more interesting race. They decisively swept a weekend against Providence. They took Springfield to overtime. They dunked on Syracuse and Utica. I mean, Syracuse needs points to, get in their own playoff race that we'll talk about in a minute here. And while Wilkes-Barre Scranton is still 3-2 in their last 5, which, that's not terrible. Like, they don't need to do more than tread water. At least that's what we thought. They're going to need to find some urgency here, as the Sound Tigers are just not going to go quietly into the night. So I have some respect for the Sound Tigers, having that kind of gusto to not go quietly in the night, despite my incredible expectations for them to do the opposite. Here we are. Both are riding sky-high puck luck benders right now with egregious rolling expected PDOs or estimated PDOs. Wilkes-Barre Scranton is at 106.37 over the last 2 weeks. Bridgeport is at 105.3. So this feels like a battle of whose puck luck train runs out of gas first here. Bridgeport also has the advantage, and this is going to sound weird, but I'll explain it, has the advantage of only having 12 games left to play in 36 days before the end of the season. But Wilkes-Barre Scranton has 16 games to play in 36 days. Yeah. So they will be less rested on average for the games they play the rest of the season compared to Bridgeport's. I think that at least is a little bit of a favorite for Bridgeport, and especially because they play 72 and 76 games. Bridgeport plays 72. So this isn't a straight points race between the two of them. It is a points percentage. So as long as they finish strong in the last 12, they're in good shape here. They're not out of the woods yet. They still have ground to make up, but they're not in a bad place. I still think it's Wilkes-Barre Scranton that gets in, I still think Brent Thompson finds a way to screw up a good thing. But if nothing else, this has become a more interesting race. And I will say, if Bridgeport gets in, it probably saves Brent Thompson's job, which, I mean, okay.
Hey, stranger things have happened, right?
It's amazing how much teams hold on to bad coaches for just way too long. But like, if he sneaks into the playoffs here, I don't think it's going to matter that they're going to get blasted in the first round. Like, I think that will be enough to get Brent Thompson another year before Rick Kowalski takes over that job.
You know, coaching is a funny thing, but now we head to the North Division, and it is wide open with 5 teams vying for those 4 playoff spots. Rochester is leading the pack with an 86.6% chance, followed by Laval, 86%, Syracuse, 84.8%, Belleville, 72.5%, and Toronto at 68.2%. Sean, what do you make of the race here in the North Division?
I said this earlier in the Amerks Facebook group, but this race is like being with your 4 best friends and being chased by a bear. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun your slowest friend. And that's what we have here. We're going to talk about Toronto in a minute, but Belleville losing Michael Del Zotto is a big blow to them. He didn't belong in the AHL and was only in Belleville for what seemed like speculative reasons and rumors, none of which are confirmed, so we won't really discuss them too much. But he didn't belong talent-wise in this league, and it showed. Like, he dunked on opponents pretty much every night. And all of these teams too have just a brutal schedule against them. But none worse than Laval, who has 19 games in 36 days.
Oof.
Laval has gotten some reinforcements back, though. Caden Premu. They got Nate Schnarr in an NHL trade. That'll certainly give them a big boost. But if I had to handicap this one, though, that's tough. Laval getting reinforcements helps shore up the depth, and that's a huge thing for them because that's what I was concerned about looking at Laval. Premu gives them a good goaltending tandem as Kevin Poulin is still somehow holding down the fort. I think Rochester getting healthy is huge for them. Syracuse picked up a goalie in Melnichuk, who I don't care what you say about his numbers in San Jose. Melnichuk is not nearly that bad of a goaltender. That defense in front of him in San Jose is horrific. So I put a lot more of the defense in front of him on Melnichuk's results than his actual ability. I'm curious to see how he does in Syracuse. Without Angus Crookshank having a defined return and Michael Del Zotto gone, I think Belleville's the one the Bear catches here, but it's truly anyone's race. Like, this is wide open. I know Toronto, and I said we're going to talk about Toronto later, and we are. Toronto is the lowest percentage there, but like, this is truly anyone's contest besides Utica and Cleveland. Those are the only 2 teams where it's like, yeah, they're locked into what they are at this point, which is probably good for Utica because they have been not winning games recently. And I don't think that's necessarily a moment for concern, but still it's nice that they banked all those early season points because it really helps to have you avoid scenarios like this.
Maybe one day the Devils goaltending will get healthy and Nico Dawes can come back down to Utica. But the last playoff race worth discussing here is my home base, the chaotic Central Division. Grand Rapids is at 33.1%. Iowa is at 47.7%. Texas at 23.9%. Everyone else is 97% or better, including my Rockford Ice Hogs. Sean, how do you see the Central's last playoff spot playing out here?
It's funny because the other 2 races feel like they're competitive because they're all reasonably good teams, kind of finding their groove late in the season, more or less. This one feels like a race to the bottom here. Like, this is the only team of this bunch that has a win in their last 3 games is Texas, who beat Grand Rapids. Iowa also didn't send Matthew Boldy or Brandon Duhaime down in paper transactions as far as I can tell and I say that because I saw some that were on Cat Friendly that were not on the AHL transactions page, which makes me wonder what's going on is, whose no move clause did they lose this time? But
I was going to say it's another dad.
Yeah, like Logan Thompson got sent down by Henderson, which changes things in a big way for Henderson come playoff time, especially if Vegas doesn't make it. But like, that's not listed on the AHL page, but it's on Cat Friendly. Anyway, Central Division. But Iowa didn't send down Matthew Boldy or Brandon Duhaime in paper transactions to make them playoff eligible, as far as I can tell at this point. So that's an odd choice. And definitely hurts Iowa's chances, not necessarily to make the playoffs, as I wouldn't expect them back before then, But if Minnesota gets bounced in the first round, Matthew Boldy and Brandon Duhaime are important pieces in Iowa. Calvin Pickard has also looked like he's finally cracked under the weight of carrying Grand Rapids, kicking and screaming to wins. Although Victor Brackstrom has started to play better, so that's balanced a little bit. But like, I'm not thrilled with any of these teams, but I think I give the edge to Iowa here. They have the most favorable remaining schedule and the roster I dislike the least of the three. This is another one, though, that still feels kind of like a toss-up. I don't think any of them beat Rockford in the first round, so this is basically a race to extend their season by a week, more or less, in my mind. Like, yeah, they could beat Rockford. You know, it's hockey. Goofy stuff happens. But, like, I would pick Rockford very heavily over any of these teams in a 3-game series. But Texas seems like they're at least wanting to hang around here to hope for a little bit longer. But I got to go with Iowa here. But I don't feel good about any of these. Like, someone's going to make it, but I guess Iowa? Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. That would... I'm conflicted, and you might be a little bit more optimistic here about the Ice Hogs than I am, but what else is new there? I certainly hope that you're right, but they've also conditioned me not to get too excited too early, so fingers crossed again. Anyway, as we alluded to, the Pacific is very much settled, and this is just jockeying for seeding at this point, as neither Tucson nor San Jose has even a 1% chance of making it. So let's shift from who's going to make it to who in the Pacific do you think does not want to play in the first round? Who's going to miss out?
So I think if there's a team in the Pacific that you're like, yeah, how do we avoid playing that team in the first round? I think it's either Abbotsford or San Diego for sure. They stashed some playoff reinforcements that are eye-opening, and their NHL clubs are not making the playoffs. Where Vegas maybe not at this point. Like, that's kind of flippy-floppy, fast and loose if they make the playoffs. But they're sending Logan Thompson down, allegedly. So Henderson will have some reinforcements, but we don't know how their season ends yet. Whereas Edmonton, Calgary, Los Angeles, and Colorado are all pretty locked into playoffs at the NHL level. So the reinforcements they papered down at the trade deadline aren't going to show up likely for that first round playoff matchup, no matter what happens in the NHL. Ontario is still very good, but San Diego can give them problems in a best of 3 series. Same whoever matches up with Abbotsford, whether that's Colorado, Henderson, or Bakersfield. The times in which Abby has been at full strength, they have looked scary good. They're a team that also is going to be getting Podkolzin back for the playoffs. That is a big addition. Like, I think both San Diego and Abbotsford maybe not, upset anyone in the first round of the playoffs, but they're going to push some teams to the limit because they're going to play teams whose NHL clubs haven't sent them the reinforcements yet, where they're going to be at, 110% of full power. So we're going to have some very interesting first round matchups in the West should everything kind of break the right way. But if I'm a first round team in the Pacific, I'm like trying to win or lose games here to duck them, because I don't want to play a team that is going to just straight up have more talent than me on the roster because my NHL club was too good. I am all about seeing if we can't, maybe toss a few games at the end of the season to get a more favorable playoff matchup. I think that's perfectly in the bounds of gamesmanship, and someone like Colorado should do that.
That's very fair. And did I see that Ontario has already clinched a playoff spot?
They have. Both them and Stockton have already clinched.
Them and Stockton. Okay.
Not that they were ever really in danger of missing the playoff.
Sure.
Like, at this point, as I said, the Pacific is set. Like, there is 0.1% chance Tucson makes it. It's over. It's over. Especially with how much those rosters have been stripped down the past couple days. It's over. So this is all about seeding matchups and can anyone catch Stockton for that first round bye, which probably not.
That's very fair. So there you have it, y'all. There is the playoff picture for the AHL. Now let's dive into the weekend series ahead. As always, we'll go east to west, Atlantic to Pacific. And first up, we have Hershey this weekend. They play at Providence on Friday at 7:05 p.m. and then Saturday at Hartford at 7 p.m. The team's offense has dried up a lot recently. In their past 5 games, they have 10 goals scored and are 2 for 21 on the power play. Whew. A fair portion of that is based on the state of the roster. That's been the story for Hershey for most of the season, though, as they've been plagued by injuries and call-ups quite consistently throughout the season. The Phantoms game on Wednesday went better, as the Bears scored 4 goals. Oh my goodness. But is there something more that the Bears should be doing here?
I think it's possible. Also, I want to double check. I think I may have gotten that score wrong. The Bears scored 5 goals in that game. I apologize. I set you up for failure there. I forgot.
No, it is all right.
Yep. I put that in as I was watching the game because I forgot about the last goal that Beck Mallenstein scored shorthanded.
So it turned out even better for them.
Yeah. But you are correct that a fair portion of the problem here is the talent on the roster. A thing that I feel like I've had to point out most of the time we've talked about Hershey or engaging with Bears fans this season. It's like, I look at the roster and I'm like, what did you want them to do? Mike Scarbosa also went down with an injury on Wednesday. So that's another ECHL guy that has to step into the lineup. With any luck, the Capitals can win the race to some of these college free agents that hit the market when their teams get eliminated from the Frozen Four and send them the Hershey Bears way. Ben Mayers or Bobby Trevino would be a nice boost. But like I said, that's a crapshoot in itself. So, but I think there's more here than a talent problem and bad luck. And let's be clear, the Bears are getting unlucky on offense. They're rolling estimated PDO for the past 2 weeks is 98.2, which is below what you want at 100. And that number is powered almost entirely by goaltending. But what's going on with them isn't all bad luck. It's bad luck plus lack of talent, injuries, and call-up have caused. I mean, I'll say it before and I've said it again. You can't replace the stallions with donkeys and expect the wagon to go at the same speed. However, I think there's at least a way to help the Bears generate more offense here. The forward group is depleted. Yes, we beat that horse to death already. But the defensive group is probably more talented top to bottom in terms of actual hockey skill talent than the forward group. Against Lehigh Valley on Wednesday night, Hershey scored goals with defense activating off the blue line in the offensive zone. One with Lucas Johansson jumping down, catching a Royal Road pass and putting it past Sandstrom. Another with Bobby Nardella beating Charlie Gerard down the wall, breaking down man-to-man coverage, and finding Beck Mallenstein for a one-timer. And these goals are great examples of why offensive-minded defensemen who can activate off the blue line are so valuable, because it's really hard to defend and generally causes defensive structures and defensive coverage to break down, which is what you saw in those goals. If I were on Scott Allen's staff, I'd be encouraging my defensemen like Nardella and Johansson and Alexiev to find more opportunities to activate off the blue line and create those exact looks they did against Lehigh Valley. Like, nothing Lehigh Valley does in their defensive structure is terribly unique. Most teams play the same defensive structure more or less across the league, which sounds insane that every team plays basically the same defense, but yeah, it's true. They pretty much do. But I'd be telling my defensemen to try and find those looks, those moments in which you can activate off the line, beat your man to a puck, and create a scoring chance. And I would also be talking with my forwards on being more active and looking for defensemen doing that, so everyone's on the same page here. And you don't have, Bobby Nardella streaking through the slot and a Bears forward in the half wall just cycling the puck down low because he wasn't looking in that direction. I specify those 3 defensemen, Nardella, Johansson, and Alexiev, because A, I trust them most doing moves like that. And they're almost always playing apart from each other. They pretty much play separately, I think, for like the last 10 games in Hershey's lineup. And that means that you can put one of them on the ice at all moments when, they're not in the penalty box. But they're also the 3 best skaters of the group that I see. And they show the awareness to already kind of find these moments where someone like Dylan McElrath is basically a statue on the blue line. And while Cody Franzen is capable of activating, his foot speed to win short area races is not great. So I wouldn't put that burden on him as much. But I'd still say he should look for those spots. But he has to really pick those, because if he gets burned doing them, he is not catching back the play going the other way, period. But that's what I would be trying to do if I were Hershey to generate more offense, is I'd be encouraging my defensemen to activate down more, to be beat, because if they win one man-to-man race, that defensive coverage will very likely break down. And we saw it happen twice on Wednesday night against the Phantoms. What day is it? Time is a flat circle.
Who knows?
I would be looking for those because I think that's an effective way to do it. They have the personnel that's capable of it. And if they could teach their forwards to, pick their head up and look, they should be able to find some of those moments.
That's fair. So let's talk about some players now. We have Garrett Pilon. He's in the 84th percentile with a first-line forward grade from the model, but has 2 points in his last 8 games. For a guy in Hershey's top 10 who's still getting to play top minutes with quality line mates, he hasn't been producing at that level. So what's been going on with him?
I think there are a couple elements to it. First, while he hasn't looked off in my views since coming back from injury, he has not looked the same. And there may be some lingering effects. There may not be. I am not a medical professional. And if the last 2 years have taught me anything, it's don't pretend to be a medical professional on the internet when you are not one. I am not one. I will say, as someone who has been hurt playing hockey at a very incomparable level to the AHL, and I want to stress that, there are definitely moments where you are perfectly medically healed, but in your brain, you don't trust your shoulder, your hand, your wrist, whatever. This is something that manifests itself. I don't know if that's something that's going on in Garrett Pilon's mind, but if it is, it would explain how he hasn't exactly looked off, but not quite the same. Also, too, when you're coming off a month of action, he's had a good runway to kind of get back to where he was. But I think more of it is that I don't think anyone on the Bears roster misses Axel Jonsson-Fjällby or Joe Snively more than him. He had great chemistry with the two of them, as well as pretty good chemistry with Gersich. I think their styles and skill sets did a really good job of making a very, very narrow Venn diagram where they did things that the other one isn't good at, and those complemented each other really well, especially with Pilon. Pilon's not very effective carrying the puck through the neutral zone, whereas Axel Jonsson-Fjällby excels at it. He's also Pilon is a bit more effective off puck in the offensive zone, finding soft ice in dangerous areas, and whether shooting or making a play from that, that's something that he is a little bit better at. While Scarbosa is a fine player, his skill set and style doesn't have that complementary nature to what Pilon brings. And he's been riding shotgun with Scarbosa for the last few weeks. It's basically been Pilon, Scarbosa, and either Protas or Malenstein or a couple other guys mixed in there, but it's been the two of them by and large. And I don't think they're good fits for each other necessarily. That's not to say they're not good players or, quality forwards. It's more of their skill sets overlap a lot. And that doesn't really allow one of them to focus on playing their game while the other one plays theirs in a complementary fashion. It's not so much yin yang as it is just that doesn't work. However, I think defensively, Pilon's also better suited as a wing. And you'll see that from time to time too, is Pilon will play center, quote unquote, because he'll take faceoffs, but his defensive zone play will be what a wing does. He'll hang out by the points. When the puck is below the dots, you'll see him come to the hash marks, defend the high slot, cut off the top. That's what wings do. And I think that works better for him. He looks more comfortable, and it allows him to position himself in the offensive side of things in transition because he's not so low in the zone coming out of breakouts. And Pilon's also been a little bit unlucky too. Last 16 games, he's shooting 8.8%, which isn't a huge drop from where he probably should be, or where his career averages are for shooting. But he's also set up a few that also just haven't gone in for him. And that's really what I think the difference is here. You add 2 more goals shooting and maybe 2 more assists in that span, and suddenly he has 6 points in the last 8 games, and we don't have this conversation. So I think some of that, dip in shooting percentage, dip in, points is from chemistry. Some of it is from just bad luck. And some of it is maybe a little bit, he's not fully healed from his injury, or he is fully healed, but mentally there's still some lingering effects of not trusting, the body part that you had to watch get broken. Maybe that's a factor. Maybe it isn't. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I'm saying it could be.
I mean, that would certainly make sense. It's a little rough coming back from that. And I mean, injuries take different times to heal, no matter who the player is and what the injury is. So hopefully he's back to 100%.
I'm sure too, he knows that him sitting out, in a game where he could play, he's medically cleared to play and could play, but maybe there's 100%. You have to know that dude is wanting to get in the lineup and contribute to the team, especially he's a top 6 forward and a skilled one, and this team needs offense. Him sitting out another game is a huge, gap to fill with a guy that maybe shouldn't be that high in the lineup. So that's a weight as a top player that you kind of, That's your cross to carry, is when you're 80% healthy, you got to get out there and make it work.
Yeah, that's fair. So now that we've gone over that, Sean, what are the keys to the weekend for the Hershey Bears?
So split weekend here, which is always difficult because it means you have to prepare for 2 opponents instead of 1. But against Providence, they need to make strides on special teams. First of all, they're getting whacked in terms of penalty differential. They sent the Bruins to 24 power plays this season compared to drawing their 15 of their own. That's a big gap, and that will never spell success for you. Hershey is also killing penalties at a net penalty kill percentage of 83.3% against Providence in 4 matchups this season, which isn't terrible. However, they're scoring at a 6.7 net power play percentage, which is awful. Yes, Providence is some of the best penalty kill in the AHL, but something needs to improve here if they're going to make any strides. The other big key I would focus on against Providence is they need to get on the board early. Providence is a team that can and has held on to early leads. They are 19-9 on the season when scoring first. After leading in the first period, they're 15-7. After leading for 2 periods, they are 20-3. They have a plus 15 goal differential in the first period, but they're even in the second and only plus 5 in the third. So Providence is grabbing early leads, and then they're clamping down and holding on to them. And we've said this quite a few times this season. Providence plays its best hockey when it comes out of the gates hot. It establishes its game. It establishes how the game is going to be played, and Providence is really good at turning those first 10 minutes into 50 more good minutes. It's not a lockdown, win 1-0, 2-1 team like, say, Rockford is, but they forecheck well, and they don't allow many odd man rushes against. Hershey does not have the horses to chase this game if they get behind. They need to get on the board first, or at the very least, they need to hold serve in the opening minutes and not let Providence dominate puck possession early, because once you let them get going, they stay going. Against Hartford, I pray for Keith Kincaid here. Adam Huska's game-by-game save percentages since February 5th. We're going to do a little bit of a dramatic reading here. So this is Adam Huska, game-by-game, his save percentage since the 5th of February. 968, 905, 935, 880, 958, 903, 882, 826. Yeah, the last 2 aren't great, but mostly respectable with a superior game or 2 sprinkled in there. Here are Keith Kincaid's over that same time. 897, 895, 870, 978, 833, 960, 812, 400. That's not a typo. 400.
400.
Now, that's much worse, and the blockade has looked like he belongs in the stockade during a lot of them. Kincaid's been good against Hershey this year so far, but I'll take that recent track record where he has struggled compared to a 4-game sample from random parts across the season against Hershey. If I am the Bears, I am praying for Keith Kincaid because by and large, he has not looked right the last handful of games here.
Ouch. So, shall we make some picks?
Let's make some picks here.
You want to go first?
I will. I think
All right.
Providence ultimately wins, but I think Hershey gives them their money's worth. I think the Bears handle the Wolfpack pretty handily, but Providence has been kind of in a weird funk, but I think that there's still enough there that they can get past Hershey, but I think Hershey at least gives them a game, like a 3-2 in overtime kind of game. But I think Hershey handles the Wolfpack. They have not looked right since Johnny Brodzinski left. He's not coming back for the rest of the season, which is surprising and very bad for Hartford. So I'm going to take Hershey in that one.
Very fair. I think Providence is going to win on Friday, but I don't want to be too mean to Hershey here, so I'll say they beat Hartford.
That's fair. The model basically is on our side for all of these. Providence is a 54.1% favorite on Friday. Hershey is a 51.6% favorite on Saturday. So
All right.
We're all in the same boat. So congratulations, Hershey, you're going to win Friday and lose Saturday. That's how this works, right? We are going to take a break here. We've, pretty much done our due diligence on Hershey, and we're going to get to the Toronto Marlies. If you're just here for the Hershey Bears, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from, so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We're going to be back here Tuesday morning to talk about the weekend. You don't want to wait until Thursday to hear that episode, do you? Don't also check us out on social media. Links to all of our social media where we have fun, do the memes. That can all be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads, pay some bills. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Now we've got the Toronto Marlies this weekend. They play at Rochester Friday at 7:05 p.m. and Saturday they play at home at 4 p.m. versus Bridgeport. So, the month of March has been a rocky road for the Marlies. They are 4-6 in their last 10 and have won back-to-back games just once. They also have 16 games scheduled for the 31 days in March, which just truly embraces the spirit of March Madness. Besides exhaustion, have you seen anything from the Marlies to explain what is going on up there?
Well, I think Josh Hosang's absence certainly plays a little bit of a role. They got him back the other night, and that always helps because it allows them to send someone like Alex Steves to the third line, which good luck, third liners playing against Alex Steves. Brennan Mennel also wasn't working out for them, so getting someone in Phil Myers that is potentially can be helpful is a useful thing. But there's also a fair amount of exhaustion here. And like we talked about with Charlotte a while back, the Marlies play a very up-tempo, high-event brand of hockey. It's effective because it allows them to exploit teams with the talent they have. If you're a team that it has a talent advantage and you trade chances 3-2, well, if you just multiply that out by playing more events, high tempo, high pace, high event hockey, that grows. And that's kind of the philosophy that the Marlies use. And it's also the Marlies also play that style first and foremost because the goal of the Marlies is to make Maple Leafs. And that's the style that the Leafs play under Sheldon Keefe. And you'll see, a lot of, by and large, and this is true of a lot of AHL teams, they'll play maybe not the exact systems that their NHL club does, but a similar version or a close enough version that if you squint, it's mostly there. The Maple Leafs do pretty much the exact same thing with some tweaks. Obviously, what they do with Marner and Tavares and Austin Matthews is not replicated by the Marlies because, well, duh. But it also requires them to play a system that requires a lot of energy and speed to play. The Marlies play that style because, like I said, they're making Maple Leafs, but you're seeing a lot of guys in these games gliding on back checks, more so than they should be, not battling as hard at the net front, making silly mental mistakes. It's almost like an old Snickers commercial. You're not you when you're exhausted. And I think that plus just some downright soft goals let in by Marlies keepers have culminated together to get the Marlies to this point. It's mostly, you see tired brain at work in some of these games because you said they played, 16 games in 31 days? This is what, when you had to suspend games for COVID earlier in the season, which still I would argue was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the price you had to pay for doing that, unfortunately, is now your sprint to the finish is quite literally an insano sprint. We saw Stockton last year when they were in Calgary. Like, they had a similar thing where they played 19 games in 27 days or some insane number. And you saw a team that played fast-paced, high-event hockey at the end being going on the ice, and you could almost see them just saying, please make it stop. The Marlies aren't quite to that point yet, but we've seen this from teams that play high event, high energy, fast paced styles is when you cram a lot of games at them, 3-4s, 3-3s, a lot of those kind of things. They get worn down, they make mistakes, and you end up with, 4-6, 5-5 in the last 10, despite being the more talented team going in. Also, I watched that Penn's Marlies game on Tuesday, and if the Marlies can play like that even half of the games down the stretch, the Bear is 100% catching someone else. All that being said, too, I'm not terribly worried about the Marlies missing the playoffs, although the model has them as the least favorite. I think Del Zotto leaving Belleville hurts them a lot, as well as the Mandalesian being done for the season. A lot of other parts of Belleville, I like Belleville and I like some of their individual players, but I think without Del Zotto, helping them ace transition every time he touches the puck, Kevin Mandalese, not their best goalie, but gave them a solid, 1B to pair. I think Belleville is the one that is the odd man out here. Because, like I said, if the Marlies can just play like that game against the Penguins they just played on Wednesday night, they murdered Wilkes-Barre Scranton. And if they can get half of the games, if they can do that or something close to that, they'll be fine. The Bear is going to catch somebody else. And if you don't understand the Bear joke, please go back and watch the intro. It will make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Maple Leafs will just send Carlton the Bear after facing the Marlies, and we'll just have a bear duel to get these Marlies into the playoffs here.
What a random Maple Leafs mascot. Although I guess
I know, right?
I guess if you made like a anthropomorphic leaf, that would look really dumb. So
That would be a lot more strange than Carlton the Bear.
I think
that's for sure.
That's probably just nightmare fuel. Although, have you seen the Belleville Senators mascot?
I haven't.
Oh, during one of the breaks, I'll have you Google it. That is like that thing looks like one of Sid's toys from Toy Story.
Yikes. Well, so let's talk about some players here. The Maple Leafs got Phil Myers assigned to them by the Nashville Predators, which was an unusual deal. Some have speculated it was connected to the future considerations trade that sent Brennan Minnell to the Phantoms, but I guess we'll never really know. Regardless of how he got here, what can the Marlies expect from Myers?
So this was the tricky one here because he hasn't been in the AHL for any stretch of time since the 1920 season and only played a handful of games then. So I had to, crank up the Wayback Machine on AHL TV's archives and find some game notes that were buried in, a thumb drive that was like taped to the bottom of my desk or something like that. So not a whole lot of notes here, unfortunately. I will say from the little bit I did get to see, capable right-handed defenseman that generates offense mostly from the blue line. He's not someone you're going to see activate off the blue line a whole ton. He's not great in transition as a puck carrier, as his skating speed is around league average. So I wouldn't expect too many controlled zone entries or exits from him. Still, he has good sense for when to activate off the blue line in the rare instances he does do it. He has a good shot too. Defensively, he's solid. He's someone who can win battles at the net front, win battles in the corners, defends the rush reasonably well. Like his skating straight line speed isn't very good, but he's got good edge work and is surprisingly agile for what is a much bigger guy. He has decent puck skills, pretty good playmaking vision, but probably won't be, dangling defenders on Sports Center or Sports Century as they have in Toronto. Still, he's likely to be a more effective player than what Brennan Menell gave them. Although I thought Brennan Menell was going to be a very good addition to that roster. It didn't work out. The system didn't suit him. But Myers is someone who I think can help them shore up their defensive depth on the third pair because he's a right-handed defenseman and he is not playing over the other two righties that they have at the current moment on the Marlies. That's a no. So he's going to play third pairing minutes, which I don't think is terrible. I'm sure he may not be thrilled with that after all the NHL time he's gotten. But if the Marlies, rotate their defensive pairs as basically just even minutes across and he's getting 20 minutes a night, he'll probably be okay with it, but I never met the man. So his attitude towards playing time, I couldn't tell you, but he's probably going to be on the third pair as their right-hand guy.
That's very fair. So short of hoping and praying that the Marlies get Eric Kallgren back from the Maple Leafs to get in net, what are the keys to the weekend for this team in Toronto?
Against Rochester, point blank, stop taking penalties. The Marlies PK is clicking at a 75% rate their last three games and is 68.8% in their last three meetings against the Amherst. The Amherst power play is still very, very good. And at the absolute best of times, the Marlies PK is middling. Turn the other cheek. Don't do it, Marlies. Do not. They also need to get pressure on puck carriers during Amherst breakouts. Turning the neutral zone into sludge with a 1-4-4 check or something a little more passive and trappy is very much not the Marlies style of play, and I don't expect them to make adjustments like that because, well, that's not what the Leafs do, and the Marlies are about making Maple Leafs. So instead, they're going to need to keep the Amherst from flying through the neutral zone the old-fashioned way by getting pressure and forcing glass and outs before the Amherst ever get to the puck in the neutral zone. In shorts, put pressure on the Amherst during breakouts because if you let JJ Peterka and Jack Quinn fly through the neutral zone, you're going to have a bad time. Against Bridgeport, copy and paste from the above. If I had $1 for every time I've seen the Sound Tigers get pinned in their own zone from defensemen making sloppy plays under forechecking pressure, I could buy Tesla in cash. Not a Tesla, the company Tesla. I could fire Elon Musk. Do you know how satisfying that would be? Anyway, that's what they need to do. Bridgeport defensemen are hot garbage under pressure. They've been so all season long. Forecheck, forecheck, forecheck. Also, I would finish checks against Simon Holmstrom. During this Sound Tigers late season playoff push that they have somehow against odds made, Simon Holmstrom has quietly put up 8 points in 5 games. He's also not good at battling through contact and shies away from physical play. A knock on him, most of his NHL scouting career is that he's undersized and doesn't like physical contact. I'd make sure you finish checks on him whenever he touches the puck. Don't chase hits. Don't do any scumbag stuff, but put your shoulder on him and finish hits when he touches the puck. Good old-fashioned finish your hits like it's a playoff game. If you do that to Simon Holmstrom and forecheck well, you should walk away with a dub in Bridgeport or in Toronto against Bridgeport.
Very fair. Well, you know what time it is now. Let's make some picks.
All right. I think both these games go to overtime. I don't know why. I have that just vibe in the universe that these are going to be overtime games. I'm going to take the Amerks on Friday, though, but I think the Marlies take Saturday. Part of me, does not believe that Bridgeport is as good as the results they put up. They've dunked on teams that should be better than them. So I have to believe at some point that ends. But I like the Amerks resurgence here. I think they're the safest of all the teams in the North, so I'm going to take them. But I think both games go to OT.
Very fair. Here, sometimes I just have to pick with my heart and not with my brain. If you are watching the video version of this podcast, you see that I've made a wardrobe change during the break. I'm wearing a Maple Leafs jersey. So I must say the Marlies sweep the weekend.
That's fair. That would be weird to pick against the Marlies wearing a Maple Leafs jersey.
It would. I mean, it's pretty on brand for a Leafs fan, though. So.
The reverse jinx or the straight up self-hate. That's understandable.
Yep. All of the above.
According to the model, Rochester is a 54.9% favorite here on Friday. Toronto is a 52.8% favorite here on Saturday. Before we go to break, I do want to ask you, have you seen the Bieber Maple Leafs jerseys?
I have.
What did you think of them?
I enjoy them. I mean, the logo on the yellow one is strange with the eyes, but the blue one is very, very nice.
Yeah, I think most people are probably going to wear the blue one out. And I've seen a lot of people, I'm in jersey pages because I own a ridiculous number of them that we won't say because my wife listens, and if she heard it, she'd lose her mind. But I just I realized when I was looking at them, do I like them? No, not particularly. But I also realized they are not marketed to my, age and gender bracket. And it doesn't matter if I do or not. So is Sprite Remix great? No, I don't like it. But I also realize it's probably not for me. So who cares? I don't really care for them. I think the reverse one, the yellow side, looks like something that Nintendo made for a Mario game.
It does. It looks like the Nintendo star.
But if, a market that Toronto wasn't reaching with their jerseys is the group that is going to buy these, good for them. That's successful marketing. So the fact that I think they look silly, really, it's fine. Not everything has to be for me.
They did debut them during the Next Generation game as well. So it all kind of made sense.
Yeah, that's their target audience. I have aged out of that, thankfully.
Yeah. I guess we should also say, if anybody hasn't seen them, the jerseys are reversible. So one side is the black and blue, and then you just flip it inside out and you have the black and yellow.
I feel like if it was a perfect Maple Leafs jersey, when you flipped it inside out, it would have a team on it that made the second round of the playoffs.
Oh, Sean.
Okay, Stacey, that might be an edit for you. We'll see. We're going to go to break.
Go ahead and leave it in. I'll take it. We're
going to go to break here. After the break, we will get to the Iowa Wild, the team my jersey is for. If you were just here for the Toronto Marlies, thank you for stopping by. Please send all of your hate to idon'tcare.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
Go Leafs, go. We are back, and we are in my home area, the Central Division. We have the Iowa Wild this weekend. Friday, they play at 7 p.m. against my Rockford Ice Hogs here in Rockford. And then Sunday, they play at 3 p.m. over in Chicago. I'm sorry, they play at home this weekend. I read that totally wrong. So we and the Chicago Wolves are visiting them out in Iowa. But special teams have been a bit rough for the Wild lately. They are 1-15 on the power play in their last 4 games and 12 for 16 on the penalty kill. Neither are pretty. Sean, what do you see the Iowa Wild doing wrong here, and how do you fix it?
So I'm arbitrarily deciding that we only have time to address one of them. So I'm going to go with the good old-fashioned coin flip here. We'll say heads is power play, tails is penalty kill, and power play it is. All right. So the Wild have 2 main problems here on the power play. First is their zone entries. When the puck gets cleared, the Wild have to break it back in. They quite simply aren't. And there's nothing structurally or schematically wrong with their zone entry plays. They run the same 2 or 3 zone entry plays that pretty much every team does. And it's a copycat league because those tactics work. But those tactics work when you execute them well, and the Wild are not. A lot of that boils down to making the right reads at the blue line and executing those small, 5, 10, 12-foot passes when you make that right read. The Wild, for the most part, are making the right reads at the blue line in those spots, but they are executing those passes and where the puck goes after they gain the zone incredibly poorly. Like, it is a sloppy execution fest. And that's something that you would think would be a focus in practice. And I'm sure it probably is. Like, there is no way that Tim Army is like watching the film of these games on the power play and being like, yeah, that looks terrible. Let's never practice it. Like, that's not what's happening here. I can't tell you what's going on at Wild practice because, well, I'm in Connecticut. That's not where the Wild practice. So I don't know where the shortcoming is there. All I can see is on the game film, they are executing it sloppy. So that needs to get cleaned up. The second reason they've struggled so much is their in-zone power play structure, the actual physical structure, but they play a 1-3-1. Everyone in the world plays a 1-3-1 pretty much at this point. It's practically universal since Tampa started doing it like 10 years ago. But they spend a lot of time working the puck on the outsides and shooting from distance. And it seems like only Marco Rossi on the half wall is actually trying to put pucks into high danger areas or create quality scoring chances. And as we said many times on this podcast, point shots with traffic are not a reliable way to create offense in professional hockey, especially on the power play. You need to work pucks east to west, get shots that either get the goalie moving laterally or get shots from good real estate in the slot area, in between the face-off dots, in between the hash marks. That's where the money is made. And the Wild, quite simply, aren't just not doing that. It doesn't even look like they're trying to do that. They are just kind of settling for moving the puck on the outside and shooting from distance, and that's not working for them, and I'm not shocked by that. Marco Rossi, again, seems like he's the only one trying to do more than shoot from distance, and I don't know if that's what they're being told to do, which if they are, that's a problem, or if that's what they're doing because they're not figuring out how to make, ingresses otherwise. That's a much less serious problem because that one the coaches should be fixing, whereas the other one, the problem is the coaching. So I can't tell you, I'm not in those meetings. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you it's not working on the ice.
Fair. So the Wild signed their 2019 second-round pick, Vladislav Firstov, to an entry-level contract that begins next season. He'll finish the year with Iowa on an amateur tryout contract. What can the Iowa Wild fans expect from him, and what does his game look like?
He's someone with a lot of raw skills for sure. He has an explosive shot with a very deceptive release that can definitely beat AHL goaltenders from mid-range. So he's going to be someone that should get some power play time, as well as get good top six billing. Although I say that seeing what they've done with some of their other prospects that have raw skills but haven't quite put it together yet, they've kind of buried them a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. He has good playmaking vision, can find teammates through traffic. He skates well enough. Probably should look to add a step if he wants to make the NHL, but he's fast enough to compete at the AHL at this level. Defensively, he's aggressive, physical, he'll engage and can apply solid pressure to puck carriers. The downside for him is going to be processing speed. In his college film, the challenge for him always seemed like it was what to do when defenders put direct pressure on him. When they are in his face, on his back, he seemed to resort to more conservative plays, in those spots. Instead of continuing to attack, instead of trying to press further, he would turn what we call possession puck, or we call attacking pucks, into a possession puck, where he had a chance to make a play at the net or make a play for a scoring chance. Because he was under pressure, he would kick it back to the point or make a safe pass instead of trying to shoulder through it. The speed and the pace of the AHL is going to obviously be a step up for him coming from the NCAA. So I expect him to struggle with that initially. If he can make progress in adjusting to the speed of his game at the pro level, I think he will be an important addition for Iowa down the run. But I think there is a big if in that moment. He has a lot of raw skills, but as we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast when talking about, prospects and guys like that, having raw skills is like having a really sweet sword. It's an awesome thing. You could have the most strong steel sword built by the best blacksmith, but if you don't know how to swing it at the right time or with the right technique, all you have is a very cool fashion accessory. He has raw skills, but it's going to depend on his ability to use them well, and that's something he struggled with in moments at the college level. I think he's going to struggle with it initially at the pro level, but we'll see how much progress he makes by the end of the season. But he has talent.
That's fair. So he's an interesting and potentially exciting player for Wild fans to keep their eye on.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from losing on Friday, hopefully, what are the keys to the weekend for the Iowa Wild?
This is going to sound familiar to you as we talk about what they should do against Rockford here, because I feel like every time we talk about Rockford, we have the same keys, but Rockford continues to play the same style, and 55% of the time it works every time for Rockford. So our key to beating Rockford is don't chase the game. Rockford is very good at winning low-scoring 2-1, 3-2 games where they can dig in and defend. They get outshot, but they'll make sure that their goalie has clear lines of sight on the shots. They'll make sure they take care of any rebounds in front of the net. They'll keep shots to the perimeter. Arvid Soderblom does not care if you throw 30 pucks at him from 45, 55, 65 feet away. He'll get them if he can see them. It's the ones that are in close or off rebounds or off dangerous plays. Those are the ones that he and every other goalie struggles with. And Rockford does a very good job of protecting the middle, letting you shoot from, way out on the blue line or way against the wall, and letting Arvid Soderblom see the puck and stop it. You can't play that lockdown style if you're Rockford if you're behind. That's not how that works. You can't play prevent defense when you are losing. So in order to kind of stop that from happening, you need to get out and get ahead. You need to gain a lead and you need to make sure that you are at least keeping pace with Rockford on the scoreboard. You also can't afford Rockford an OT point here because, they're pretty much safely in the playoffs race, but you don't want to be spotting teams above you loser points. So besides getting a lead early and holding on to it, you need to win this game in regulation. Against Chicago, like we said with Toronto, don't take penalties. Some penalties, yes, are inevitable. The cost of doing business of just playing the game. You go to poke check a guy, he steps on your stick and falls, the arm goes up. You did the thing, but, cost of doing business. It's something that just happens as an inevitable part of the game. But don't be cross-checking guys away from the puck just because they pissed you off or they said something about your mom. Don't do that. Chicago is too good on the power play and has the best penalty differential in the AHL by a very wide margin. They are good at drawing penalties, probably because they're super talented and stopping them requires, water skiing a little bit behind the guy. Or they get favorable reffing. I'm sure you and I will see this maybe a little differently. But don't do the crime. You cannot kill the time.
Hey, we might see it a bit differently, but I do think it's a weak excuse to blame the officiating for most games. So I'll own it when it's not their fault.
I agree with that. And I think a lot of it too is, calls that go for your team are good, calls that go against our team are bad is pretty common and not warranted in many cases. I watch probably more games than there are like 3 people who cover the AHL that I could say have a reasonable case that have watched more AHL games than me this year. And I've called out bad officiating when I've seen it, but it's rare. Most of the time, your guy did the thing.
Yeah. Pretty much. But one thing that might help out Iowa and hurt Rockford this weekend is Michael Tepley is out with an injury for a couple of weeks now. So that's going to be rough, seeing as that first line of Lucas Reichel, Michael Tepley, and Andre Altabarmakian was starting to very much heat up in these last few games and just dominate everybody. So I'd assume Brett Connolly moves back up to play with Reichel, and they've had good chemistry in the past, so we'll see. But It is now pick time.
I think Iowa gets to OT in both, but I think they lose both games. I think they can probably scrap out loser points here, but I don't think I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I want Iowa to make it. I think they're a fun team, at least comparatively to the other two that are in this race in the Central. But I got to pick against them in both these. I do not think they are the best teams going into these games.
I will take that. But when it comes to my picks, the last time the Ice Hogs had a 4-game win streak like they do currently, it began with a win over Iowa. And once that 4-game streak ended, they went 1-6 in their next 7 games, which was something to watch. But anyway, I think it's probably the reverse this time, sadly. I think Iowa's going to end Rockford's streak instead of kicking it off. And then Chicago takes that personally and avenges their I-90 rivals' loss and beats them on Sunday.
Chicago, big believer in avenging the Rockford losses.
Always.
The model has Iowa as a 50.6, not a 56, a 50.6 favorite on Friday. I think that's entirely powered by home ice advantage. So Chicago is a 51.6 favorite on Sunday, which I'm surprised by. But again, road team going into opponent's barn, not an easy place to win.
That's fair.
That will be all from us from the Iowa Wild perspective of it. After the break, we will get to Grand Rapids and Bakersfield because that's a series that's happening this weekend. If you're just here for the Iowa Wild, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, check us out on social media. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. If you cannot spell the Calder Farmstead, I don't know how you got here. It's probably on the thing you're looking at right now. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We will be right back. Stay tuned.
And we're back, and we are surprisingly still in the Central because we're going to be talking about a non-Central team. But we have the Grand Rapids taking on the Bakersfield Condors this weekend. They play Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. at Bakersfield. And the model is very high on the Bakersfield Condors, giving them an A+ team grade for the first time this season. What is the reason, Sean, that the model is so high on them? And do you agree with it?
First of all, the model takes puck luck into account and corrects for it. That's one of the nice little tweaks that I made, I think, 2 years ago now. So it's lower on teams like Utica and Ontario that have a really high puck luck, or PDO as we call it, which is a proxy for puck luck, and grades them down a bit, correcting for the fact that all good luck, like all bad luck, eventually will run out, and that kind of helps shift the predictive model. The Condors on the season are right around neutral in puck luck. Yeah, if you look at their rolling 2-week PDO, their swings just like every other team, but for the most part, they've kind of balanced each other out, and they've managed to hang around a sustainable number, which I think is a credit to the Condors that they've been so successful without needing big runs of good puck luck. Second, the model obviously likes guys like Marody and Griffith. It sees them and like, those guys are good. Duh, we all know that. But it also sees Tyler Benson coming back, Brendan Perlini being quality player. That's a big feather in their cap. I mean, third, the worst forward on Bakersfield, according to the model, not in my opinion, I disagree with this, but according to the model, the worst graded player on Bakersfield's current roster is Luke Esposito, and he's in the 46th percentile this season. If your worst rostered forward is the 46th percentile, you are doing damn fine things on offense. Like, that's a solid group you have there. Defensively, obviously, Broberg carries the group, but they don't have anyone on that defensive core who I can point to, or I can point to as the model. Anyway, the model doesn't point, it's just numbers. But that I can look at and say, that's a bad defenseman. Like, that is a detriment to the team. Like, they have guys who are not fantastic, but no one who's like, oh, that's basically a pylon on skates. Whereas a lot of other teams are stashing a 6 defenseman that's net neutral at worst, or even net negative. The Condors don't have any of that. All of their depth guys are at least worthwhile AHL players. The model isn't super high on the goaltending, but still views Moonshine as a worthwhile goaltender. Konovalov, not so much, but they have good depth in front of them that helps them kind of balance that out. Also, too, the Pacific Division has seen some exodus for injury call-ups, and the team power grades don't exist in a vacuum. It's a composition of not just how good your team is, but the grade of other teams. Not everyone can be an A, so your top teams get better grades, and even if they aren't necessarily historically strong grades, they're still the best in the league. That's an A grade. So like the fact that Los Angeles has like 12 guys on IR pulls down Ontario a little bit. Stockton has seen some of their guys take some trips to Calgary recently. They've seen some guys get hurt. So like, yes, I still think the model still thinks the Condors are a good team, but there is some level of perspective in that of relative to what they play. And that's not a knock on them per se, but also just something as a fact of the matter. Personally, I'm not as high as the model on them. I do not think of them as an A-plus team, not only just at the moment, but in general. Although I recognize they're certainly a good team. I think if we talk about them versus Stockton or Ontario in the playoffs, when all sides have a peak roster, I think Bakersfield comes up short in those conversations in my mind. But I think they're where they ought to be in the pecking order of the Pacific Division. And pecking order feels very appropriate because like half the mascots are birds. But somewhere between third and fifth at any given time is where I think Bakersfield falls. I don't think they are better than Ontario and Stockton when everyone has their best roster on the ice, but I think they're probably in the conversation somewhere between Abbotsford and when their best roster is there, Henderson. But I think they're in those territories. They might be the best of those three teams. They may be somewhere in the middle. It's pretty close, but I think that's where they belong.
That's fair. So speaking of Stuart Skinner, you gave him the nickname Moonshine as he was like running your car on moonshine. It may work for now, but it is not a long-term solution. Would you like to maybe walk that back at all?
I'll give Stuart Skinner credit for one thing. He's improved a lot since I gave him that moniker, and his ceiling has risen in my mind. That being said, I still don't think he's a long-term solution for the Oilers as it stands right now. He could continue to improve and make me eat my words further, but he's actually impressed me this season in the AHL. And I wouldn't say he's impressed me in the NHL. He's not been great in the NHL, but I think there are other factors included, in that conversation. But I still think it's a fun nickname, and I'm going to continue to use it because, if nothing else, we like fun nicknames on this show. But I will give him credit. He has made a big leap this season in his development and has certainly not been the sieve that he was in previous years or powered by good defense in front of him like he was last season. He has made, moves up the developmental ring and has genuinely been a solid AHL goaltender. I'm still going to call him Moonshine because it's fun, but I feel like now it's almost become the like Archer, I'm going to harness the power of moonshine. And I think that's, if we can now make it into an ironic nickname, I'm good with that. If anything else, Stuart Skinner, big listener of the podcast. So I'm sure, he has somewhere in his like training facility at home, like a picture of moonshine just plastered on the wall as motivation. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. I accept being wrong that I thought he was going to be terrible forever, and he's not, but I don't think I'm going to give that up yet. We'll see what happens in the future, but if nothing else, I think it's fun and I'm going to stick with it.
That's fair. Next, you're going to see him with a goalie mask that says Moonshine on the back.
That would win gold. Like that right there. If that happened, I'll be honest. We don't even need to hold a vote for best mask in the AHL. That wins. Like if you have a mask that is, a comeback to something we said, cool, you got it. Here's your trophy. I'm not even going to take a vote. We will not be taking questions at this time.
That would be absolutely fantastic. But Bakersfield fans, if you are having nightmares about the Grand Rapids Griffins lately and you have no idea why, I'm here to tell you why. It is because Riley Barber is back for Grand Rapids. And that never spells out good things for their opponent. But Sean, that means the power play has to start working again, right? Right? Something has to give.
I feel like we can just rewind to the Iowa portion of what we talked about with their power play and just say the same things. Like, I would have thought, I thought too, when Riley Barber went down, there goes, I shouldn't say there goes Grand Rapids power play. I'm like, well, that's going to be a hit to the power play. Like,
nope, that's their whole power play.
yeah, like they have other talent, but like, yeah, he was a huge part of it. I still thought it would be not a complete black hole. Like, I thought it would just be less effective, 17%, 18%, nothing that you're happy about, but you make do. It's amazing the cliff they fell off when Riley Barber left. And now that he's back, it's like, and this still isn't functioning. What is happening? Like, their entries are still just awful. They're wildly ineffective. And again, it's not because of structure or strategy, but execution. They also have an added element to that. Like, because unlike Iowa, Grand Rapids has zero speed behind the puck on entries and has a pace on these zone entries that's best described as casual entering the zone. Like, that needs to change. You are not going to be able to push defensemen off the blue line, on these zone entries and create space for these passes if you are going at grandma Walker and bingo speeds. Like, that's not going to work for you. Then they actually get in the zone and set up. They're not too bad. But for the love of hockey, why is Riley Barber not stapled permanently to the left half wall, waiting to just Ovechkin pucks? Yes, Ovechkin is now a verb in this sentence, because you know exactly what I mean when I say it. And yet he's all over the place on the Griffins power play formation. He's on the other half wall. He's in the bumper. He's like, why? Why? The man is excellent at one-timing the bejesus out of pucks. And you're getting cute on a power play that's scoring at a single-digit rate the last 5 games. What are we doing? Like, you have something that works. Put him on the left half wall, have his stick pointed to the rafters, just standing there, and then find a way to get pucks to him. Success. That's it. That's the formula that worked so well for you early in the season. And now you're screwing with it, and I don't know why. Like, if you were still getting something going, like if this power play were at least still generating some offense, doing something else, we're not having this conversation. Sure. Maybe it's not as effective, but there's some luck involved in that and whatever, and I can look past that. It's not working. What you're doing is not working, and you're still not just stapling him to the left half wall like he's Ovechkin, because in a sense, on this power play, that's what he is. He is standing there for him to just one-time the life out of that puck, and you're putting him on the other half wall in the bumper behind the stop. Don't get cute. It's not working.
Or don't stop doing that, because I need you to not score goals. But anyway, Sean, what are the keys to the weekend for Bakersfield taking on a Central Division team, which doesn't happen very often?
Yeah, last time these two played this season, which is a wild thing to say about a Pacific and Central Division team, but here we are.
Yes.
Last time these two played, these games were very high event north-south, which made for fun games. But I think it's safe to say Bakersfield was the better team in both games that series, even though they split. If I'm Grand Rapids, I'm looking to slow this pace down and not let the Condors use what is a pretty decent team speed to turn this into a back and forth, up and down, boat race kind of game. If I'm the Condors, I want to do the opposite. I think pace is going to be the key to this series. If Grand Rapids can play a slower, grindier, dump and chase, win battles along the wall kind of game, advantage them. If the Condors can counterattack rushes, generate rush chances, fly through the neutral zone and beat forechecking pressure, advantage them. I think that's the deciding factor in this weekend series is who can play at the pace that best suits their style. If it's Condors probably take both games. If it's Grand Rapids, they can probably scrap out at least 3 out of 4 points.
That's fair. So, pick time. What you got?
I think Grand Rapids at least gets to overtime in one of them, but this is on paper what looks like it should be a more competitive game to me, but the Condors have the better team here in 2 of the 3 assets. I think Calvin Pickard is the best goalie in this series, but he hasn't played like the best goalie in the series in a little bit. So I'm going to say the Condors take him. Take them both. I'm picking a Condor sweep, but I think at least Grand Rapids gets a point. Although, CC, if you're calculating, if they do not, you do not get to dock me a pick here.
Yeah, you hear that, CC? But I definitely need them to lose both games, the Grand Rapids Griffins, I mean. But I still don't understand what universe we're in here with the Central Division team going outside of this division, which they just never like to do. And I'm also torn because I want to prove that the Central is the superior division in the AHL, but I also need the Griffins to lose both games. So I'm compromising with myself here, and I'm going to say there's a split. So the Griffins are going to win on Friday, because I chose the Ice Hogs to lose, and they're just going to do that to make me nervous about the playoff spot, and then the Condors are going to come back and win on Saturday.
All right. The model is big Bakersfield here, which is not surprising. 59.8% favorite in both games, which I realize doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've been looking at these percentages across, that's a big favorite. And it's funny because I actually had to double check when I was looking at the week as a whole. There are a couple 70% favorites coming up, and that's wild to me. But if you see who the team is they're playing in those games, you're like, oh yeah, that's solid. But yeah, Bakersfield 59.8% favorite in both games. That is it for our coverage of this somewhat Pacific Division series. We're going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to the speed round where no drugs are done, unfortunately. If you're just here for Bakersfield and Grand Rapids, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We'll be back here breaking this weekend down for the Bakersfield Condors and Grand Rapids Griffins Tuesday morning. Doesn't make a lot of sense for you to wait till Wednesday afternoon to listen to that, if you ask me. So subscribe. Also check us out on social media. We have fun there. All of the links to that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads, pay some bills. We'll be right back. And we are back, and we are here for the final portion of the show, the speed round. Let's get started. Courtney, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Charlotte at Cleveland, Friday and Sunday. Courtney, who do you got?
Cleveland Friday, Charlotte Sunday.
Cleveland sucks. I'm taking Charlotte. Tucson at Henderson, Friday, Saturday. Courtney, who you got?
I got Henderson Friday, Tucson's Saturday.
Tucson sucks. I'm taking Henderson in both. Milwaukee at Texas. Courtney.
Texas sweep as much as it hurts me to say it.
I'm taking a split here, and we'll take whatever game Connor Ingram starts for the ads. If he starts both, I will take Texas to win on Saturday. So asterisks for me. Friday night, Abbotsford at Stockton. Courtney.
Stockton is fire.
Stockton's still too hot to handle. I'm taking them too. Wilkes-Barre Scranton at Belleville. Who you got?
Let's go with the Sens here.
For me, Michael Delzato is off to find Lisa Ann in Ottawa, so I'm going Baby Pens here. Manitoba at Chicago.
Oh, Chicago, and then they're going to send some angry moose back to Rockford.
I'm going to take the Wolves in overtime. If they win in regulation, still counts, though. Springfield at Hartford. Who you got?
Springfield.
I have Springfield big. Lehigh Valley at Laval.
I'm going with the Valley here.
Skyrockets in flight. French-Canadian delight. Syracuse at Utica. Who do you got?
Utica.
Utica has been in a funk recently. I'm going to go Crunch here. Just a feel. Saturday, Lehigh Valley at Belleville.
Oh, I chose both of them to win on Friday. Now one has to lose, so I'm going to go with Lehigh Valley wins.
I don't want to pick the Phantoms here, so I won't. B-Sense. Colorado at San Jose.
Eagles flying high, Cece.
I'm taking the Eagles plus 1.5, plus 2.5. They're going to crush San Jose. Eagles. Wilkes-Barre Scranton at Laval.
Give me some Penguins.
I think it's Laval, but it's close. Manitoba at Rockford.
Do I have to, Sean?
Yeah.
It's going to be the Easum. They're beating Rockford.
Oh, wow. Picking again. I'm going to go Ice Hogs here.
Thank God.
Ontario at San Diego.
Get me Ontario.
I think this is an interesting series for the playoffs, but this is not yet the playoffs. I'm going to take the rain on this one. Springfield at Providence.
I'm going to go with Providence.
I agree. Bruins. Rochester at Syracuse.
The Crunch.
I'm going Amherst here. Don't know. Just a feeling. Sunday. Bridgeport at Rochester.
Hit me with Rochester.
Well, Bridgeport seems to be rolling here. The Amherst are too. I'm sticking with Rochester. Grand Rapids at Ontario.
Is Grand Rapids trying to leave the Central Division? Go for it. Ontario wins.
That's what they need. An 11th team. No. Ontario with the rest advantage. They take the dub here. Providence at Utica.
Utica Devils, baby. Or I guess they're called the Comets.
Utica with the rest advantage takes the W. Stockton at San Diego.
Ooh, I like chaos. Give me San Diego.
I don't have it in me to pick against the Heat. I'm going Stockton. All right. That is it for the speed round. That is also it for the show. Courtney, lead us out.
That is it for the show. Thank you guys so very much for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment podcasts over at fullpresscoverage.com. Just click on the podcasts drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast so you help other people find our podcast. Podcasts with higher ratings, get found more easily. That's how their search engine things work. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Giving us reviews and feedback also help us improve the quality of the show. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION, so you can make music for you too. Courtney, where can the people find you?
My name is Courtney Bauman. You can find me on Twitter at Courtney Dagger, like Chelsea Dagger, Blackhawks goal song. Makes total sense. I'm on Instagram at Courtney Dagger50. You can also find me tweeting more hockey stuff over on the From Center Ice Twitter account at VF Center Ice Pod. There's also an Instagram at From Center Ice Pod, or just check out FromCenterIce.com. There's links to all the things there. And you can find my writing about the Ice Hogs over on Full Press Coverage. Sean, where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. Not a lot of actual posts, but I do a daily story of Jersey of the Day, mostly because I have a bunch of jerseys and, well, screw it, this seemed like a fun way to show them. You can find all of my stats work, the model, the playoff percentages, all of the maps, charts, graphs, things like that. They're updated Thursdays, more or less, usually Thursdays, or at least at the very minimum, using Thursday's data. All of that can be found at bit.ly/datadumpandchase, all lowercase, all one word. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. For Courtney Bauman, I am Sean O'Brien. Until next time, please dump and chase responsibly.